ndetse n'ubundi hari abava i Burundi bakaza hano, hari abantu bava hano bakajya i Burundi, hari abagenda na Rwanda sinzi niba ikijyayo, bagenda so ariko
kimwe mu bintu byibasiye isi muri iki gihe harimo urubyiruko rwabaswe n'ibiyobyabwenge, indwara zidakira zibasiye abantu ndetse n'amakimbirane yo mu miryango. Hari uwaje nk'igisubizo kuri ibyo byose byavuzwe haruguru. Ninde? Akora iki? Akorera he? Yitwa Muganga Nzito, akorera mu karere ka Nyamasheke, ariko aho waba uherereye hose ku isi akugezaho imiti. Icyo ugomba gukora ni ukumuhamagara mukivuganira. Niba uri muri diaspora wigira ikibazo, wowe muhamagare gusa muvugane, aguhe inama z'ubuzima kandi aguhe n'imiti. Muravugana ku buryo umuti uri bukugereho ukavurwa kandi ugakira. Ni muganga gakondo w'inzobere mu kuvura akoresheje ibimera, afite umuti aguha wari warabaswe n'itabi ugahiturire burundu kandi urabizi ko itabi bishobora kukwica. Hatanga umuti ku bakobwa babuze imihango n'abajya mu mihango ntikame. Avura amarozi y'amahuherano, amategano ndetse n'amatamikano. Hatanga umuti w'uruhereko, avura karande n'inyatsi, nyabingi n'imitsiriko. Hatanga umuti wongera akanyabugabo ndetse akanatanga umuti wongera amavangingo ku bagore. Hatanga umuti wa diabete, uw'umwijima, uwa hepatite A na hepatite B. Atanga umuti ku bafite umubyibuho ukabije ndetse n'abananutse cyane. Atanga umuti ku bafite ibiro byinshi bashaka kubigabanya ndetse n'abafite ibiro bike bashaka kongera ibiro. Atanga umuti n'ubujyanama ku bafite amakimbirane yo mu miryango. Agufasha kugarura ibyawe byibwe, akanaguha ubujyanama butuma ubana n'abandi neza mu kazi ndetse no kugira igikundiro mu nshuti zawe. Umwihariko kuri uyu muganga nuko igihugu cyose waba uherereyemo ku isi akugezaho umuti. Ushobora kwibaza uti umuganga ushobora gukura ubuzima bwawe mu kaga akakugarura umugore wawe wagutaye ntabwo ahenda. Igisubizo ni oya. Ugereranyije umuti aguha n'amafaranga make y'umuha ntaho bihuriye. Kuva aka kanya ugiye kwicuza impamvu wowe n'inshuti zawe mutamenye uyu muganga mbere. Hamagara iyo nimero, namara kukuvura urahita wicuza impamvu utamumenye mbere. Ushobora kumuhamagara kuri call isanzwe cyangwa kuri WhatsApp. Aboneka amasaha 24 kuri 24. Muganga Nzito, igisubizo ku buzima bwawe n'ubw'inshuti zawe.
Nyakubahwa Perezida, mu minsi ishize twabonye intumwa z'i Burundi mu gisirikare n'iza leta zitabira ibikorwa byabereye n'aha ngaha. Ejo bundi tubona impunzi z'abarundi zitaka ubushake zisubira i Burundi. Baravuga ati se haba hari umubano muri iyi minsi cyangwa se ibiganiro byabyihariye kugira ngo imipaka yongere ifungurwe yo ku butaka. Murakoze.
Nta gufungura imipaka iracyameze nk'uko yari imeze, nta cyarafunga. Ariko twebwe na mbere hose no gufunga kw'iyo mipaka nta uruhare u Rwanda rubifitemo. Abarundi nibo bahisemo gufunga imipaka, ndetse turababwira ngo aho bazashakira gufungura, twebwe ntabwo twigeze dufunga. Ndetse n'ubundi hari abava i Burundi bakaza hano, hari abantu bava hano bakajya i Burundi, hari abagenda na Rwanda sinzi niba ikijyayo, bagenda so ariko hagati aho muri uko gushakisha twabana dute birenze ibi birushijeho kuba byaba byiza. Abantu baravugana, twe nta na rimwe tugize dushaka guturana kugira abaturanyi tutameranye neza, ariko bijya biba biraba n'ubu birahari, ariko muzakurikirane neza ntabwo byigeze biduturukaho na rimwe. Niyo mpamvu ndetse kugenda no kugaruka rimwe na rimwe twe nta abantu aho bashakiye baraza, bashakiye baragenda. Nabo abaye impunzi niba duha za UNHCR cyangwa abandi bakorana n'impunzi bakaza bakavugana nabo, niba hari abumva bamaze kurambirwa ubuhunzi bashaka gusubira iwabo, twe tubaha UNHCR ikabatwara. Ntabwo twagumisha hano ashaka gutaha, n'ubundi yaje hano atari uko tubazanye, ahubwo ni uko bahuye n'ibibazo iwabo bagashaka kugira ngo baze babe hano. Nta kintu gishya rero kindi.
Good afternoon, sir. Thank you for this press conference. Kind of a follow-up on where we started. At the same time that we have a meeting coming up in Washington eventually, at the same time you have a narrative that has been developing in these last weeks and touching on something that doesn't seem to be the way it is presented, talking about humanitarian crisis that is incredible, millions of people displaced in eastern Congo, that people need to have access to Goma, and that is especially developed in Europe, from what we can see. So sometimes also it reminds me of 10 years ago, or 2012, 2013, what is this thing about Goma? Because as soon as M23 took in 2012 Goma, the whole world went cuckoo. And now again, everybody wants to have access to Goma. So what is there? Because it's at our doors. At the same time, I believe that after 25 years, to have MONUSCO there, which was also part of the forces that, beginning of this year, were shooting at Rwanda. I mean, for Rwanda, this becomes something that maybe needs to be taken up. Like, how long can a force like that still stay there? And especially that they've been part of the belligerents attacking Rwanda. Mm-hmm. So what is this thing about Goma that nobody knows?
Well, Goma is near a volcano, which sometimes erupts, and so maybe that seems to be the factual thing about Goma. The rest are just studies. But from what you started saying, what is it that didn't actually originate from Europe? You asked something about Europe, and you are saying the stories about Goma and so on are originating from Europe. But what is it that didn't originate from Europe about this story or about this problem? If you look at the whole history and the old history, but even the recent history, you have had Europe always in the mix of things in and between our countries, and even to do with the crisis we have in Eastern Congo or the region. For about Goma, I don't fully understand. And talking about humanitarian crisis, yes, there is suffering. There is no question about it. But actually, it seems there was more suffering before the crisis, or at the beginning of it. As of today, I think the suffering is still there, but maybe less than. But to talk about humanitarian crisis so much is to find an entry point, an easy entry point into that crisis, and then shaping it the way some people want, given how they have been relating to this history I'm talking about all along before. You cannot talk about just crisis or humanitarian crisis without highlighting the root cause of that. And people have always avoided bringing up matters to do with the root cause, because in the end it exposes people like that. So there is always a way to shape things in a manner that there is effort to protect themselves, the people I'm talking about. And is it a new crisis in Eastern Congo, or in Goma, or around Goma? You remember this crisis, I have said this before, and you have heard it even from other people, or you know it yourselves. This crisis was there 2012, came back 10 years later. Why can't people try to understand? What is it? How can you have a problem 2012 and 10 years later you have a repeat of the same problem? It means, but yet for those 10 years we had this international presence, and many years before that, supposedly to address these problems. So much money spent, so many people involved, people losing their lives in big numbers, refugees, people displaced, and but life goes on like that until we are revisited by the same problem, and then we start running around like this is a new thing. I mean, the amount of hypocrisy and even double standards and real insensitivity of some of these powers that we know, who are associated with the cause of these problems, or who accompany the crisis in a way they have chosen, and in the end they are the ones making so much noise about, they look like they are really hurt by the suffering of people. These are people touched and offended by people suffering. But this is just trash of pretense. If you are like that, you have heard people talk about values, you see our values, blah, 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 but it's a lot of nonsense. If you have the power of everything, whether political, money, or whatever, and then every day you're talking about values and so on and so forth, and even want to teach others how to respect values, yet you are the cause of the suffering, and you are the cause of the perpetuation of that. What kind of pretense is this? And you can't just, so when you see these people, coming out with a lot of anger on this and talking about, you see us, you've made a mistake, we are going to do this. In the end, all they are doing is adding more suffering to the suffering that is already there. It's not actually addressing any problem. So Goma, but if anyone wants Goma, that's fine. For whatever reason, whether it is ritual or, some believe in witchcraft, they would want to go and pray in Goma and meet their witch doctors there and so on and so forth. Still, you know what? Goma it's not functional as of now, but it is in the hands of some people. You go and talk to them. But if I were the one, now let me be myself, let me tell you a story. If I were the one, You come and I'm the one controlling Goma, and you come to say, I want to use Goma. I say, fine. But these are conditions. Goma is part of my problems that I face with the government. And now it is in my hands. I will not give it to you until you show me, alongside that, how you address my problems. Well, I may sound speaking for these guys, but I'm just reasoning. If I were the one, you want Goma, you want Kavumu, or Bukavu, or you want the whole of Eastern Congo back, fine. I have no problem with that. It will only come with you addressing my problems. Yeah, you understand? In my long history, in my judgment, that is what I learned over so many years of fighting for my rights and for, you know, people have, they sacrifice, they do what, but unless they have no reason they are sacrificing, that's a different issue. But if they are, everything should be put together. You want this, I'll give it to you. I have no problem. But we came to this point because of this reason. So if you don't address that reason, how do you just expect to cause problems? And then you come and say, you know, and this I'm saying because, again, for me, what you see is what you get. We used to tell Congolese from the beginning, when, you know, we would be in the discussion and it's like you see leaders behaving like, it's like, you know, you must do this, you must do that, and they are the cause of problems. So I used to tell the leaders of Congo that asking, or in order for us to have security in our country and have peace, and that we have fought for so many years in the past, you know, it's a must. We must give each other peace. I can't ask anybody for peace as a favor they are doing to me. No. For us to have peace, I beg you, and you have to do me a favor to give me my peace. That's a different world I don't live in myself. I cannot ask anybody to do me a favor to have Rwanda secure or to have my right. Well, initially maybe I can ask you to do a favor, tactically. I can say, please, I beg you, I can even kneel down if you want. But if you don't give me my right, then it means a fight. We will fight, no question about it. So there is no way, where I'm concerned, you can do me a favor for my right. Who are you after all? Who are you to have everything, including my own right, that you can control? How? Who are you? What gives you that right or power to be able to do that? So I've given you more than you really wanted, but Goma is part of the problems we have in Eastern Congo. And yes, Goma should go back to its operations as an airport. But what is it that stopped it being so in the first place? So you must address that. You want to address humanitarian crisis. I agree. There must be a way of doing it, taking on board the fact that there is what is causing the humanitarian crisis, and that must be addressed. Right? So, anything else about Goma?
Well, somehow there is also another side of the whole story that has been kept repeated, especially now it's still alive in Europe. It's about the looting of minerals and all that. I mean...
Again, that is nonsense.
Exactly.
They looted minerals better than anybody, worse than anybody I know of in history. So would you even listen to that? Minerals? Minerals, they sell minerals in, what is it? In Antwerp, in where is?
Antwerp. Diamonds.
Diamonds.
But there are no
Do they produce diamonds? Or they have gold, bullions they took long ago and they are adding more. Do they have a lot of gold? Do they have gold mines? These Europeans? They take it, okay. To make their case even simpler or less than it is, they may even say, no, but the gold or the diamonds or whatever we have is brought by legitimate people, okay? Would you believe that? But that legitimate, when they are there, they are the legitimate ones. So, but this whole thing, why do you think, by the way, there is something to do with there is an MOU actually we're supposed to be having with Europe, which involves, I think, and a lot has been worked on about traceability and so on and so forth, okay? Rwanda got involved in that and passed every stage and standard that was expected on that. Now, what is funny and contradictory is, at some point, then DRC goes to Europe and says, no, don't sign anything with, but how do you not sign anything that was supposed to be transparent and show where the minerals are coming from or who is involved? So on one hand, you want to be clear that there is nothing except that Congolese always passed through here, and some sold it here to Rwandans who went and sold it to somebody else. Others, they said it through Burundi, through Uganda, through the neighbors. But it is only Rwanda that was picked on about minerals. Simply because, I think with the audience back home in Europe, they listen more to these accusations. The more they hear of them, then the more questions they raise about Rwanda. Whether what they are saying is happening or has happened or not. So, minerals, really think, okay, FDLR, that actually at some point was in control of Goma, or the surroundings of Goma. Why are they found to be innocent in the whole equation? And yet every day we point out things to do with FDLR. But they are not interested. They say, no, they are few, they are... Well, if they think they are few, they should come here. We will take... we give them face-to-face conversation with those that have been brought from Eastern Congo recently. They will tell them the stories. But do you think they even want to do that? Haven't some of you journalists, maybe, I hope you're also not selective about what you want to know. Haven't you asked to go and meet these people who have been brought from Congo, the FDLR, to tell you their stories that show you how they are so embedded and intertwined with the Congolese forces and other systems of government? So that plays behind the scenes role, and you don't see it at the forefront being talked about. In fact, some of these FDLR have been doing mining in Eastern Congo. Where do they take their minerals? Maybe those are the minerals that end up in Europe, but they would rather hold Rwanda responsible based on the stories around minerals. What sense does it make? You know, don't... sometimes we overrate people. We overrate them in a sense. We think they have, when it has been said by Europeans or by this, then it must be true. But these are the things they get involved in. Petty things. And